there. This is Mike Shaw, and you're listening to the Interactive Interview.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Interactive Interview on the interactiveinterview.com, courtesy of ProWrestling.com. We're joined here today by Mike Shaw. Mike, how you doing?
Good, guys. How's it going?
Oh, very good. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to do it.
What have you been up to lately?
Well, I got out of wrestling about a year after I left WWF, and I did a few overseas trips after that, and I moved back home to northern Michigan, where my home is up here. I'm way up north in Marquette, Michigan, not too far out of Ontario, Canada. And I got into the security business, the area manager for the state of Michigan, and I just enjoy doing things with my kids and my family, and my daughter's school, and my son's very active in sports, and that takes up most of my time right now.
Very cool, very cool. Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Believe it or not, I lived up here in northern Michigan. We had no cable TV, we only had 2 channels when I was a kid, and I never seen a professional wrestling match on TV until I was about probably 18 or 19 years old. We used to be able to catch, if we would get the right TV antenna or whatever we would do there, put the old tinfoil on the rabbit ears or whatever. We used to catch Vern Gagne's show out of Minneapolis once in a while, about 11 o'clock on Saturday night, back when they had the old AWA with Vern Gagne and the Crusher and those guys. And that was the first I'd ever seen professional wrestling. I had never watched it at all growing up.
What made you decide this is what you wanted to do?
I wrestled in high school, and out of high school I ended up being a wrestling coach up here for 2 years at the high school I graduated from in Gwinn, Michigan. And from there I had a professional. I got into softball. I had a professional softball tryout down in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I got down there and we were playing some softball. I was living down there with a buddy of mine, and like those league softball, basketball leagues that aren't, if it isn't a name brand thing, they usually last about a year and fold up, and that's what happened to the softball. They get folded up, and I was in Florida, and I came across a couple of guys down there that started talking to me about getting into professional wrestling, and I wasn't really interested. I wanted to do some other things, and they just kept after me, and I finally ended up leaving the Florida area, and I went up to Boston and got trained by Killer Kowalski, and I wrestled for almost 20 years.
What was it like training with Killer?
Killer trained us real well, actually. We had a lot of fun there, and it was kind of new to me. That was my first real exposure to wrestling. I didn't know anything about the business, and so I was out there probably with him for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. I was probably out with Killer about 6 months, but one thing nice about on the East Coast back then is there was a lot of independent wrestling shows, so after he got us trained, we could wrestle around the East Coast, and Vince's father was still running the East Coast at that time, and anytime they would come into the Boston Garden or anywhere in that area, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, anything in that area, and they were short of guys, they would call Kowalski and use us. So I got on the old WWF shows back in the late 70s, early 80s, and that was a good experience for me. So it was worthwhile me being on the East Coast for a while.
Listener Ryan Benson would like to know, can you tell us a little bit about your boxing and amateur background?
Oh, yeah, I had a professional boxing license in Michigan. It was kind of funny. They just ran a story in the Detroit paper. There was about 6 people in the history of Michigan that ever held a wrestling license and a boxing license, and myself and Joe Lewis were 2 of those, and it was kind of odd to see that combination. But living so far up here, like I said, I grew up here up north, and back then in the mid-'70s to get any kind of fight or anything like that, you had to go to Chicago or farther than that. And preliminary boxing is very, very similar to preliminary wrestling. You weren't going to make a whole lot of money, so that avenue just kind of dried up on me. But I really liked it. I still enjoy it. I still watch it whenever I can, and I really liked it. As far as amateur wrestling, I wrestled all through high school. Then I ended up coaching wrestling for a couple of years. I was a Great Lakes area champion up here. I had a pretty good run as an amateur wrestler, but I didn't bother following it up in school. I got into other things, and I kind of pursued other sports. So I got away from it, and that's a funny sport. Once you get away from it, it's pretty hard to get back into.
Doing research for the show, of course, I stumbled across the fact that your debut match was with Ricky Sexton, and you won it by submission. What can you tell us about that match?
All I remember about that match was in Westerly, Rhode Island, and you guys have done some good research here. That was a long time ago, but I did wrestle TV Ricky Sexton in my debut match. That was a Kowalski promotion down in Westerly, Rhode Island, and the funny thing was that was the first match I had, and I believe when I ended my career, I had close to 5,000, and Ricky Sexton had a fantastic ego. When I left the ring and we went back to the dressing room, he told me, "Hey kid, that's probably going to be the best match you ever have in your life." So that's what I remember out of that. So Kowalski was kind of standing close by, and he whispered to me, "Boy, I sure hope it's not the best match you ever have." So, but that was funny. That's something that Ricky said to me that I always remembered, and I still laugh about when I think about it sometimes now.
Listener Rick Clark would like to know how Farmer Bill affected your career.
He was the one that approached me when I was down in Florida when I was playing softball. He was, I met him at he was working at a Ford car dealership down there in just outside of West Palm Beach, and he was the one that kept asking me if I wanted to wrestle. When I stopped playing softball, I had got hooked up working for another car dealership down in West Palm Beach, and I was driving a parts truck, and once or twice a week I would have to go to a shop where Bill was he was the parts supervisor, I believe. And he was the one that kept asking me about it. "You want to try wrestling? You want to try wrestling?" And I don't know if he was asking to train or, he was trying to get me to hook up with the Grahams at that time down in Florida. And I was living with a guy down in Florida. We were friends. We were sharing an apartment. And he was leaving. He was moving back to Pennsylvania, so I didn't really have much to stay in Florida for. That's when I went ahead and made the move and went to Kowalski. So I'm kind of glad I did. Everything worked out fine with Kowalski. He treated me really good there.
Listener Rusty Brooks would like to know what it was like working for Gene Kiniski and Al Tomko.
Well, by the time I got there, I started there in, I started there in 79, 80, somewhere in that area. That's the first place I went to after I left Kowalski was Pacific Northwest Wrestling. And they had a fantastic thing there. They had a heck of a promotion there for a long time, but Gene was pretty much getting out of it by that time. He was kind of backing out of the promotion, and him and Tomko, and they had another promoter out of Portland. I'm trying to think of his name right now. They were all partners at that time, and then they kind of all broke up. Don Owens was the guy out of Portland. They kind of all broke up, and they started going their separate ways. And Gene, I wrestled Gene a couple times in Vancouver. He would come out and make special appearances and that type of deal in Vancouver. But it seemed like every time we built something up there, where we were all young at the time, we didn't know a heck of a lot about it. Myself and Moondog Moretti and some other guys that were up there at that time. And every time we built somebody up on that TV, which was a very strong TV, it went all the way across Canada, Tomko would come out of retirement and come in the ring and want to beat everybody. So his ego basically killed the promotion, as far as I'm concerned, So that's probably what hurt that promotion. But that was a great area. That got me. Luckily, it got me the access to the TV and stuff that went across Canada, and that helped me get into Calgary, where I ended up having a real good run in Calgary after that.
What are your memories of working as Big Ben Sharp in South Africa?
I'll tell you how that all came about. I'll tell you honestly. I flew into Johannesburg my first night. I had just wrestled the tournaments in Hamburg, Germany, and I left Hamburg and I went into Johannesburg, and Bull Heifer was the promoter at that time. Him and his son Johan Heifer. Bull Heifer was probably, other than him and Stu Hart, were probably the two best wrestling promoters I ever wrestled for. And my connection out of Hanover, I went into London, England. Then I flew into Johannesburg, and at that time, my real name being Mike Shaw, they had a wrestler in that country who had been a real good boxer. His name was Mike Skitta, and he had been like the second or third rated heavyweight in the world, and he had got into wrestling. In my first couple of weeks in Africa, I was going to go around the country wrestling against him, and they didn't want to promote Mike Shaw against Mike Skitta. They thought it would confuse the people. So Bull Heifer said to me, "Where did you come in from?" I said, "Well, I went from Hanover to London to Johannesburg." He said, "Oh, London, I like that." He said, that's perfect. Your name right now is Big Ben. And that's how that happened. We were standing in the airport when he gave me that name, and that's how that all started. And I went back there for 5 or 6 tours, and I really liked it there. I really liked wrestling in that country. It was fantastic.
How did you like working with Paul Jones when you were the Mighty Robber?
I don't remember that much with Paul, actually. I had a couple little short runs down through the southern areas and stuff, and other than when I was with WCW, and I was kind of hit and miss in that area. I don't recall that much about it, and I didn't have that great a success in that area at that time. So it's kind of an area I don't really recall or put that much thought into.
How did you like working for Ole Anderson?
I hated every minute of it.
Oh, why is that?
Ole Anderson was, there was an odd combination there. WCW, the booker down there was like a revolving door. 1 week it was Flair, 1 week it was Ole, 1 week it was somebody else, 1 week it was a combination of 10 of them. And you know how the wrestling business goes. They all take care of their buddies and promote their buddies and give them the main events. And I was very close with Terry Funk when I was down there. He was very instrumental in promoting the Norman character, and he had the Funk's Grills, and he had some TV time that he always got me involved in. And we did the thing with Kevin, Sullivan, and Woman, and it was getting pretty good. It was the character in the magazines was the second or third most popular wrestler in America. The Norman character was, and Ole came in as the booker, and he didn't like that. He didn't like any guys that he considered to be Funk's guys because he thought Terry was going to try to become the booker next. So he just phased me out immediately. He made me Trucker Norman, which was a ridiculous character of something he had promoted back in the 50s up in Ohio somewhere, and give me very little TV time. Just had all the heels come in and beat me up and leave me laying out there. And it was just, I hated every minute of being around Ole. I believe if Ole Anderson became the booker at that time, WCW was talking about signing me for a couple more years, and they liked the character, but Ole said they were taking it back to wrestling. He didn't believe in the gimmick of a lunatic or anything like that, and so he just ended the character on the spot.
How did you enjoy your time wrestling in Mexico?
Mexico was really different for me to go down there with all the flying and the small guys, and I liked being down there. I made a decent amount of money wrestling down there, and I had 2 good runs with Arena Mexico office. I was down there as Aaron Grundy, and I had a partner, and a couple of things went a little bit sour there. I was taking a lot of bumps and doing a lot of things for the guys, and they really liked it. But I had my big partner there, Solomon Grundy, who still wanted to wrestle as a monster, and he wouldn't go off his feet. And so most of the Mexican guys were going in and complaining, and they didn't want to wrestle us, and they didn't want to work with us. And then they switched me down there. I had a hair match, and they switched me, and I was a little bit more successful on my own than I was with Grundy. I liked the idea at first, but it just wasn't working out as with him and I together. So I was happier to be on my own down there and doing my own thing.
Talking of Aaron Grundy, you wrestled under that moniker in Georgia Championship Wrestling. What was it like working there?
That was a Joe Pedicino thing, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then we tried to hook up on ESPN and become Global Wrestling, and they had big plans for that, and I think we made about 6 or 8 TV tapes, and it never worked, and they kind of phased it out. But down south is really odd. I mean, you go to wrestle in Georgia Championship Wrestling. One night you're wrestling in a bingo hall, and one night you're wrestling in a bar, and one next night you're wrestling outside, and it's really odd. I mean, when you talk about down south, when they talk about wrestling, I mean, that's what they mean. I mean, they could care less. I mean, we were wrestling for Georgia Championship Wrestling some nights, and we were wrestling in front of 20 and 25 people, roller rinks and everything else, and it was just, I was living there, so it wasn't bad for me, but it wasn't one of my greatest experiences.
A second ago, you mentioned Stu Hart.
Right.
Of course, you wrestled in Stampede Wrestling, but what was it like wrestling in detail for Stu and the Hart family?
I'll tell you one thing. When I went in there, I probably went into Calgary the first time in 80 or 81, probably the end of 80. I went in there, and I was only supposed to go in. I was wrestling in Vancouver, and like I said earlier, our TV tapings went across the country, so it went into Calgary. And I was only supposed to go in on Christmas Day for a battle royal. They were trying to bring enough guys in to have a 20 or 25 man battle royal. So Stu Hart flew me over from Vancouver, and I got there and they liked me, and I ended up staying. I went back to Vancouver a couple times just for a week or so for special promotions or a cage match or something, but I got into Calgary and I really liked it. I ended up having a heck of a run there against Owen Hart as Makhan Singh. We probably wrestled each other, I'm going to guess, 300-400 times. We had sellouts all over Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba. We were starting to go down into Montana, and that thing really got hot there at Stampede Wrestling, and we got on TSN there, which is the equivalent of the Canadian Sports Channel on, it's like their ESPN, and we got on there, and it really ended up being a hot thing. And the first night I wrestled Owen Hart, he was the youngest one of the boys, and he was the smallest one of the boys, and he was supposed to wrestle another character up there by the name of Kerry Brown, and Kerry refused to wrestle him. He didn't want to do what they wanted him to do, or he wasn't happy with what was going on, and he refused, so they threw me in. And I guess it's the old saying, you're lucky to be in the right place at the right time, because Owen and I really took off, and we probably got 2 or 3 good years out of our stuff up there before it finally came to an end when he moved on.
How did the transformation from Big Mike go to Makhan Singh?
Actually, my partner there was Gama Singh, he's a Punjab from Karachi. He's from that area originally, and Makha is actually Michael in that language. So it was just a matter of switching Michael over to Makha and then just putting Singh on it, which they all use as a surname anyway. And he got a tremendous amount of heat up there. I mean, my wife and I couldn't walk on the streets. We were walking downtown Calgary one day, and somebody stopped their car and threw a full can of pop at us, and it got really heated up there for a long time. And it was funny. I would still do all the crazy stuff. Stampede was a wild territory. Stampede was years ahead of its time, with the music and the wild matches. I mean, we had chain matches, cage matches, hour-long street brawls where we're to the rafters of the building and back. But I would still go out and on the weekends and do charity work almost every weekend. So people weren't sure how to take me. I was crazy in the ring, but then on weekends I'd be out doing charity work for almost every charity up there, from chili eating contests to riding bicycles to everything else. So they're saying, geez, this guy's not really a bad guy until he goes in the ring. So it kind of worked out really good for me that way. They didn't really know how to take me ever.
Any memories of your tag team partner, Vulcan Singh, a.k.a. Gary Albright?
I didn't hear the first part of that question.
Any memories of him?
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was going to do real well in this business. He got over good in Japan, and they liked him in those shoot style matches they had over in Japan. And he was a tremendous amateur wrestler. He was second in the nation in the NCAA at Nebraska, and it was unfortunate that he passed away. I don't think he could have been about 30 when he died. I don't think so. Unfortunately, it's his time came to an end too quick. But he had a lot of good years left ahead of him in the business.
You mentioned Owen Hart a second ago, and just to get a little bit more specific, you had some great matches for the British Commonwealth title. Can you recall any good memories about those matches?
Was that against Owen, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some tremendous matches. We have I have a promotion tape that I used to send out that my wife made that is probably about a 15-minute promotion tape, and probably about 12 of it's him and I, and we just had a tremendous trust with each other. He would always tell his father and tell other promoters that he would do stuff with me that he wouldn't do with anybody else. He would fly on me from the bleachers in the old Calgary arena, which were 12, 15 feet in the air, and everything was very spontaneous with him and I. We'd go in the ring, and we had 30, 35-minute matches, even at my size, and we could have went longer in a lot of these matches. I mean, they were just tremendous matches, and I think it just came from a trust. I knew him up there as a young kid, and when we started together, it was just one of those things that really happened that it was great with him and I. It was very, very easy, and the matches were very good and exciting, and the people were really into it. And what's ironic about that is everybody looks at Brett as being one of the best wrestlers in the world, and him and I could never have a match together. Anytime him and I wrestled, we stunk the place out. And it's just funny. I mean, it's just sometimes you mesh with guys and sometimes you don't. And, yeah, Brett and I could never have a decent bout, and Owen and I could have one any given night. So it's kind of funny how that works out.
Keeping on the theme of Canada, what can you tell us about your hardcore matches that you had long before hardcore became popular in the U.S.?
Oh, well, I didn't hear all that. My phone's getting kind of scratchy. What kind of match was it?
The hardcore matches.
Oh, the hard... I think we made some up on Calgary half the time. We were wrestling matches sometimes with We had coal miner glove matches with steel gloves on. We had chain matches. We had strap matches. We had ladder matches with belts tied to the ceilings. Yeah, that was they talk about the ECW and stuff like that being hardcore. I'm not blowing our horn or anything here, but we did that stuff in Calgary years before it ever hit wild in the States. We did matches up there that were so wild that they threatened to take us off TV. We had the TV producers coming down saying, "Geez, you guys got to tone this stuff down," and it got to be where it was wilder and wilder. But the only problem with that is we could never figure out what to follow it up with. I mean, the people want more and more all the time, as you can see in wrestling, and we did so much that we ended up having 10 and 12-man cage matches, and I mean, the hardcore matches were unbelievable up there. I mean, we had chairs, tables, ladders. I mean, there's anything went. Yeah, there was fire. It was unbelievable, some of the stuff we did up there in Calgary.
You just mentioned about how some of your people you work with mesh and some don't. How did you get along or work with Chris Benoit?
Chris was a very good guy too. Chris and I didn't wrestle each other very much up there. They mostly had him. When I was in Calgary, we were bringing in a lot of Japanese guys. The Calgary office did a lot of work with the Japanese offices, and they were putting him in mostly with some of the young Japanese guys that were coming in. And I think Chris and I did a couple of angles up there at one time, and it worked out good. It was funny. I used to know Chris when he was probably 12 or 14 years old, hanging around the arena up in Edmonton, and he always told us he was going to make it in wrestling. He was going to make it in wrestling, and Calgary was a perfect fit for him because at that time you had Dynamite, you had Owen, you had Makhan Singh, who were all around that 200, 210-pound area somewhere in there, and Calgary had always been a big man territory, but these guys took off. The Harts were in that category, 210, 220, and they had some fantastic matches. Dynamite Kid he'd come back from Japan, and they would just tear the building down. They had great matches. At that time, they probably saved Calgary. I mean, people were just crazy about those guys.
Keeping on the same theme of Canada, how did you enjoy your announcing duties while up there?
I really enjoyed the announcing part. I had a good time announcing. That's something I wanted to get into. I did a bit of it on TSN as well before the gentleman had some problems, and he ended up shutting down his TV studio, which he had himself. But I enjoyed the announcing, and I think it'd give a good avenue for what the people wanted to hear, because we had Ed Whalen there at the time who was so straight, and then my stuff was just off the wall, so the contrast was kind of good, I think. I think the people enjoyed it.
You mentioned, of course, Norman the Lunatic earlier. How did that gimmick start up, and how did you like having Ted Long as your manager?
That was other than Makhan Singh as a heel, I think the Norman character was one of the best characters I ever did. I really enjoyed it. It got very popular. I was getting 200-300 teddy bears a week brought to me in arenas around the country, and I was donating them all to children's hospitals and stuff like that. The idea actually originated. I was working up in Calgary, and it originated from Jim Ross, actually, who was on the booking committee down in WCW at that time, and they brought me in and hooked me up with Teddy, but they wanted to keep it a heel. They wanted to just be a crazy Chainsaw Massacre type character, but the people liked it so much that they just had to switch it. I mean, they'd do everything in the world with me, and the people would still cheer it, no matter what they'd done. I don't know if it was a disgust for how Teddy treated me or what it was. I guess maybe they felt sorry for the character, But that's a character that could have been similar to George Steele. That thing could have went on for 12, 15, 20 years, and people still would have liked it because you could do anything with it, But as you mentioned earlier, my buddy Ole came in and kind of did away with that.
Just speaking of Teddy Long, have you seen any of his recent stuff on WWE television?
No, I haven't seen any of it. I'll be totally 100% honest with you guys. I probably haven't watched 5 minutes of wrestling in the last 10 years. I'm not a wrestling fan. I don't watch it. I talk to the guys once in a while, or I'll get a letter from a guy here and every now and then, but I don't follow wrestling. I couldn't tell you 5 guys who are in WWF right now.
Listener Rick Clark submitted another question. He said he heard a rumor that Sting and Lex Luger tried to save the Norman character. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I sure am. I was going to bring that up earlier, actually. Jim Herd, who was the WCW president, and I can't remember who else was in the office at that time, Jim Ross or somebody, I believe. Lex and Sting were probably the two biggest names in that organization at that time. Without ever telling me or asking me, they both went in and asked for a meeting, and when Ole started doing away with it, and they told him it was a big mistake. They said the character was very popular. Luger, I believe, who was a babyface at that time, told him that my character was more popular on the road than he was. And they went to bat for me big time, and I spoke to them both about it after I heard about it, and they admitted that they had went in and tried to do it. And Jim Hurd, who knew absolutely nothing about wrestling, he said, well, Ole's got complete power over the wrestling right now, so whatever he wants to do, we're going to let him do. So, you know, it was just, it was doomed. It was doomed from the beginning. When Ole got there, he just had made up his mind to get rid of it, and there was no saving it. But they both did go in and try to save the character, and I appreciate that they did, and I still talk to them about it once in a while.
When you first came to the WWF, you had a brief stint as Mad Monk Friar Ferguson. Why did that only last for such a short amount of time?
What happened there is, from what I heard, Vince never admitted it to me, but Vince I heard through a couple of the road agents and a couple of the guys that he had got a lot of negative calls from the Catholic Church and some other religious organizations saying that wasn't an appropriate character to be on TV, having a monk wrestle, and they had me carrying out a flask and stuff like that, and they just, he took a lot of negative heat about it, I guess, in the press and on the radio and TV out in the New York area. So he just got a hold of me and told me, let's just squash that idea, and he sent me home and said, when we come up with another character for you, we'll bring you back, and which he did, so he kept his word with me.
Speaking of the character was Bastion Booger.
Right.
How did you enjoy that character?
I didn't care for it.
Ah.
I never liked the idea of, actually, they had a good idea with it. At the end, they were going to switch it babyface and let me, the kids liked it. They liked saying Booger. It was like they were getting away with swearing or something, you know. It was a character they liked, and with my size and the look, they were, the Hebners who were there at the time, refereeing and kind of a half road agent, came to me and told me that they were going to switch it babyface, that Vince was getting the word back that people liked it, and he was going to let me slip into half a Norman character and be funny with it and see how long they could get out of it. Similar to a George Steele type thing again, you know. And I went in on one TV, and 3 weeks later I went back to the next TV and I got my notice. So something didn't work out in the meantime, and we never did switch it babyface, but I think it could have worked out real well as a babyface character.
Listener C to the C said that you were scheduled to be in Royal Rumble 1994, and Ted DiBiase, who was the announcer for that event, made a joke that you had eaten too much and couldn't compete in the event. Obviously, you had been given your release prior to that event. What exactly was your release given for?
Actually, at that event, that pay-per-view, I hadn't been given a release yet. I was actually at the event. The idea of me not coming out in my spot when I came up on Royal Rumble was they wanted to try to. They did a thing where Bret had got hurt earlier in the night, somewhere on the pay-per-view event, and they wanted, when nobody came out in that time spot, they wanted the fans to think that it was Bret not being able to make it to the ring. So that was the out they got by. They didn't send me out. They actually did a videotaping thing in the back where they had me bent over a toilet like I was sick and throwing up, and which I don't think they ever aired. I don't think they ever did play it. And that was the idea behind that. They wanted the public to think that Bret wasn't going to come out. Then later on, when he did come out, they were just doing it all for the big pop there, and that was the idea behind that. As far as me getting my notice in WWF, I heard that SHawn Michaels had a real dislike for me for some reason, and he got into Vince's ear and told him that I shouldn't be around WWF, that I should be let go. And I guess after hearing that enough and planting that seed long enough, I heard this after I was gone. I had 4 or 5 of the guys call me, including Bret and a couple other guys, and they told me that that's what had taken place, that he had gotten upset with me for some reason at an arena, and he just made a vindictive move to keep getting into Vince's ear until they got rid of me. And that's finally what happened.
Can you recall any kind of a confrontation that you had with Shawn Michaels, or?
No, that's funny. We never really got along, or we never really hung out together, so I don't know what might have took place there. Somebody said that we were in Detroit, and they were having a match in the Palace, him and Razor Ramon or somebody, and I was supposed to have laughed at it or something, saying, boy, those guys are really working hard tonight or something, just clowning around in their dressing room. Don't know if I said it, don't know if I didn't say it. And one of the other guys ran to him and said, yeah, the Booger's sitting in there saying that you're having a rotten match. I heard that that's what set him off, that irritated him enough to be vindictive enough to spread the word to get rid of me.
Jesus. The final question coming in from Rick Clark was, what was it like to be wrestling for Emile Dupre?
Well, we were in, I think I went 3 or 4 years there for him, and it was an interesting territory. You could only wrestle in the summer because all the arenas were packed in the wintertime for hockey, so once ice went down, there was no wrestling, so we crammed as many shows into the summer as we possibly could. I kept a diary one summer when I was there, the second summer when I was there, and I actually wrestled 128 days in a row because he booked every night. And when I say I wrestled 128 days in a row, some of those days you may have wrestled 3 or 4 times. We used to do TV tapings in the morning in Moncton. We do 2 or 3 TV tapes once a week, every 2 weeks. And then after that, we'd go do a house show somewhere that night. And then on Sundays, a lot of times, we'd do a house show at 2 o'clock and do another house show at 8 o'clock at night. So when you say you're cramming 128 days in a row, you're looking at maybe 150, 168 matches in the course of about 2 or 3 months. So it was constantly on the go. You'd get up in the morning, you'd be gone. Emile was a fair guy. If you did your part for him and didn't rock the boat and didn't ask for a raise, you could stay there forever. You know, he liked certain guys, and you know, I had a good time there. I met my wife in that area. She's from the Maritimes, and both my kids were born out there, so I got some pretty good memories of that area.
Now I'd like to move into the word associations, where we'll say a name, and if you've got a story about that name, you can run the story, or if you're not, you can just give a couple of words. Is that
Sounds
right?
good.
Excellent. First name on the list is Killer Kowalski.
Killer Kowalski, he treated me really well when I went out there. He took good care of me. He got me a place to stay when I got out there, and I hooked up with some guys who I've stayed friends with over the years, and he was probably one of the better trainers in the business at that time. He took good care of me. I'd never been around a vegetarian before, so some of the stuff that he'd done kind of amazed me. He'd go out to eat with the guy, and he would just eat pounds of salad. You know, it was like eating with a horse. But I had a lot of fun with him, and he treated me very well, and he made sure I got on the right step to have a decent career.
Ricky Sexton.
Ricky Sexton, he was fascinated with his own body. This guy, I don't know how old he was when I met him, but Ricky would always claim that he had the greatest back and the greatest calves in the history of wrestling. And he would stand up on a bench in front of you and make sure that you seen his calves every single night. So Ricky was quite a character. I think if Ricky would have made a move probably when he was younger and got out of the Boston area and spread out a little bit, he probably would have had a much more successful career. But he was pretty rooted into that area there, and I guess he was happy with that. He ended up promoting some shows, and he had a ring that everybody had to rent from him when you were out in that area, so he always had himself on some shows, and he seemed to enjoy that, so that was probably worked out good for him.
Gama Singh.
Gama Singh was, we got hooked up together there with the Crotchy Boys in Calgary, and we had some real good runs together. Then he got into South Africa, and he was going over there a lot, and I went over there a couple times with him, and we had a lot of fun together, too. We made a lot of trips together for many years. I actually seen him a couple of years ago. I went up and wrestled a show in Calgary, and we went on the road for a couple of days together and shared a room and talked about the old times, and we both got similar age kids now, so it's kind of funny to see the kids growing up, and I had a lot of fun with Gama. He was very, very smart in the business, and he was very successful in the business.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart, he went on to be a tremendous star in the business. I was never that close to Bret all the time I spent in Calgary. It wasn't like we ever became buddies or anything else. We didn't do anything together. We seen each other. We would talk. We'd have a little laugh, maybe a beer or something together, and but we were never very close. Bret and I not only never really meshed in the ring, but personality-wise, we never really meshed together. He was helpful to me when I first went to WWF. He put it when I went there and had my matches. He come to me and told me this is what they want to see. They want to see some action. They want to see him moving, and I do know that he put a good word in with me for Vince. So, you know, I have nothing against Brett. Just we were never very close.
You've already mentioned quite a bit about Owens. How about Bruce and Keith Hart?
Bruce was the booker up there most of the years I was there, and Bruce had a good mind for the business. Like I said earlier, Calgary was probably 10 or 15 years ahead of time. I mean, Bruce, you know, they got hooked up with Bryan Adams, the singer, and a rock and roll producer out of Vancouver, and he brought in hockey players and football players and everything many years, even before WWF did it. So he had a good mind for the business. He, you know, he stayed right there in Calgary all those years, and my wife and his wife were probably the best of friends when we were up in that area, and we still got a Christmas card from him this year, but things change so much when you're away over the years, you know, people, you grow apart and stuff like that. If I got up to Calgary, I would definitely go by and see him, and I had a lot of good times with Bruce. Keith I never did much with. Keith wrestled very limited when I was up there. He was pretty much done. He had became a full-time fireman by then, and I wasn't around Keith a whole lot. You know, there were so many kids up there of the Harts that, you know, you either seen some of them a lot or you didn't see some of them a lot. And Keith was another one. I was never really around Keith much. I might have wrestled him 10, 20 times in the 7 years I was up there. But other than that, I didn't have too much to do with Keith.
How about the patriarch, Stu Hart?
Stu Hart. He probably would be a toss-up if I had to pick who was the best promoter I ever wrestled for, him or the gentleman from South Africa, Bull Heifer. It'd be hard for me to pick. Stu I spent a lot of time with. He treated me very well. Anytime I went to another territory, I knew I always could go back to Calgary and wrestle for Stu, and I give him a lot of credit. He made a very successful business in an area where nobody thought he would, and he was a great guy. I regretted to hear that he had passed away, and it's just it's a shame that the good people got to get old and we lose them. But Stu was great. He treated me and my family very well.
Arn Anderson.
Arn was quite a character. He was a nice guy. I was around him down in WCW, obviously, and I had a lot of good laughs with him. I was never too tight to his inner circle. He was very close with Ric Flair and in that connection. And but anytime he was around, he was always friendly, and you know, he was a good character for me to be around. He was always nice to me, and I would never have anything bad to say about Arn. I had a lot of good laughs with him.
Hey, you just mentioned him, Ric Flair.
Rick was another character I never was around too much. They were when I went on the road wrestling, I had a different a theory on what I was on the road for. I went on the road, I wrestled, I basically went back to my room and got some dinner and watched some sports or whatever, and wanted to get back home to my family and stuff. Where, you know, Flair, he was the nature boy. He lived it up every night till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and if you weren't involved in that, if you weren't going out doing that, you were kind of in a different circle. So I knew Rick well, and I spent a lot of time with him, but he was another guy I didn't hang out with too much. Nothing against him. I just we didn't have nothing in common.
Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin, I did a couple of things with him in WCW, and he was another guy that had a lot of great ideas. He had a lot of great ideas for this business, and I spent a lot of time with him down there talking about different things and how to do things. And then when we got out of there, he sent us an invitation to his wedding. I couldn't make it to it, and I really haven't talked to him since. We had the famous toilet bowl match there, or a toilet room match in Corpus Christi, Texas, and then we kind of parted ways after that. And when I left WCW, I really didn't hear from him too much after that.
Solomon Grundy.
A guy who was a huge star down in Mexico the first time he went down, but didn't realize that the business had changed the second time he went back. He was a tremendous star down there originally. Then when we went back down there, they made us brothers, and it just never clicked. He's a good guy. We could never get across to him that things had changed. You know, you're in their country wrestling them. You had to do things with them, and you know, naturally, when you're in your country, you want to look good, and he just never went off his feet, and it irritated the guys and finally irritated the promoters. And in Mexico, it's a funny thing. You wrestle for the Arena Mexico, which is the main office, but then there's tons of little independent shows around, and it got to the point where the little independent promoters didn't want to book us anymore. So, you know, I don't want to be in a foreign country not making no money. So after a while, it just didn't work out, and I was better off to come home. Then I went back on my own.
Terry Funk.
Terry was a great guy to be with. For me, he took good care of me with the Norman character. Anytime we went down to the Texas area, I went over and stayed at his house, and we had some independent shows up here in Michigan a few years ago, and he came up here for those, and he had to get back to another show or someplace. And last time I seen Terry, my wife drove him to the airport. I stayed in the arena and finished wrapping up a show, and my wife drove Terry to an airport, and he took off, and I haven't seen him since. But Terry helped me immensely when I was in WCW. He really liked the Norman character. A lot of the stuff you would see, the characters, me as a cowboy, me as an Indian, me as an army soldier with a pot on my head and stuff like that. That was mostly all his ideas. He would be a tremendous booker somewhere. If he should have been the booker in WCW, and I think that place would have had a better chance of succeeding.
Jim Ross.
Jim was always very nice to me. He brought me into WCW originally, and then he went ahead and made the move to WWF. And when I was in there, we didn't see each other too much. He had kind of went in, and he had that illness there for a while, and I just kind of lost track with Jim. But Jim and I actually spent most of our time talking about other sports. I'm a baseball and football fan, and so is Jim, and we spent a lot of our time talking about other things. We didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about wrestling, but Jim was one of the better announcers in the business, and he treated me very well, you know, anytime I've ever been with him.
James, do you have any more you'd like to add?
Sure, one coming in from Rick Clark. How about Nitron?
Nitron, I didn't know him very well. He was only you're referring to the guy that was the bodyguard there for a woman when I was in WCW?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was kind of a loner guy. He would do his own thing. He would get in the car and take off, and I didn't see him much. He was a huge guy. I never realized how big he was till we started doing those things with him. And did he ever get any kind of break in the business after that? Did he do anything besides that?
Not that I ever saw, no.
No, I think that was pretty much it. I think when he was done being the bodyguard there, I think that was pretty much, and I think that kind of bothered him. I think he realized he had the size, and he never really got a chance to. I don't know if I've ever seen him wrestle. I've seen him do the bodyguard thing, but I don't know if I ever actually seen him in the ring, to tell you the truth. And boy, after I left WCW, I never heard a word about that guy. I don't think I ever seen him again.
I have two left. First one is Vince McMahon.
Oh, excuse me. Vince was very straight with me when I went in there. You know, the monk or the Friar Ferguson character didn't work, and he told me he was going to send me home till he developed another character for me, and he sent me home. He paid me the entire time I was off. I got a check every 2 weeks in the mail. I don't remember how long it was now, but he kept his word with me. The only thing I wish he would have, when we had the situation where SHawn Michaels and his little connection started getting his ear and got me phased out of there and basically got me fired, I wish he would have came to me and asked me what was going on, because he gave me his word that he was going to switch me babyface at one TV, and 3 weeks later I'm getting my notice at another TV, and never really got no rhyme or reason why. You know, I never understood it until I heard after I was out of there. I heard what happened, and I heard that from quite a few people that I trust, so I put some stock in it. But I wish Vince would have came to me and said, you know, hey, what happened here? Is there any way we can work this out to smooth this over? And I mean, it would have been a matter of saying, hey, you know, if I said something wrong, I apologize, or a handshake. To me, I don't even realize what it was. I guess somebody took it. Obviously, Michaels took it a lot more sour than I did, and I guess he won. He wanted me out of there, and that's what he got.
And the final one is Eddie Gilbert.
Eddie was a great brain in this business. He had a lot of tremendous ideas. When I first went down to WCW, I spent a lot of time with him and Dick Murdoch, which unfortunately they're both passed away now, and they helped me a lot. I'd been in mostly small territories and overseas countries before I went to WCW, and you know, they helped me adapt to the. It was kind of odd for me to go in and all of a sudden you're making 4 or 5 weeks of TV and stuff like that. And Eddie put a lot of time into me, and I liked Eddie. He was a good guy. He was a brilliant mind in this business. As you know, he booked in a lot of places that did real well, and it was unfortunate for his death at such a young age as well. So a lot of good ones. We lost a lot of good ones during about the last 5 years.
He heard that you were running or involved in a wrestling school at one point?
Yeah, I ran a wrestling school up here in northern Michigan probably for about 2 years. I was running it in conjunction with a kickboxing club that they have here in the area in Marquette, Michigan, and I probably had 10 or 12 students come through. A couple of them had real good potential, and I'll tell you honestly, I sat down with my wife, and it just got to be such a headache. I had guys coming in here from New York and from Wisconsin and all over the place, and you get up here and you end up being, basically what you end up being is their babysitter, and these guys are out in public getting in trouble, and they can't find jobs, they can't find places to live, and oh man, it ended up being such a headache. I enjoyed the training, and but after a while it just got to be too much, and I went ahead and finished up my last crew a couple of years ago, and I've never done it since.
You mentioned one of the Moondogs earlier. Moondog Spike just recently passed away. Did you ever have any altercations with him or any?
No, I didn't, and I didn't. I'm sorry to hear that because I didn't know that he had passed away.
No, he actually, unfortunately, passed away in the ring in Memphis.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
How old would he have been still wrestling?
Daniel, do you have that information?
He wasn't fully active. He was just doing a spot for it was Jerry Lawler's
it was a birthday thing.
Return.
Oh, I see.
It was a Jerry Lawler birthday kind of event in Memphis.
Oh boy, that's terrible to hear. I spent some time with the other one. Was it Rex? Randy Cawley, was that his real name?
I think so.
He was over in South Africa a few times when I was there. They got to be very popular over there. They did real well over there too, and I spent a bit of time with him. He was always a nice guy. Then he was in WCW when I was there. He came in on his own when we were there. He was a nice guy, but I didn't really know the other one very well. As a matter of fact, I don't even remember even meeting the other one, to tell you the truth.
Okay, cool. Before we hang up, is there anything that you'd like to say to your fans?
No, I just I appreciate all the support I got over the country, all the years I wrestled, and I still get quite a few letters. I get some requests for pictures, which I always try to honor and get out to these people as soon as I can. And I just I had a good time with my career, and I'm happy what I'm doing now. I miss the traveling. I don't really miss the business. It got to be too cutthroat toward the end. You know, there's no place to wrestle anymore. You know, obviously if you're not with Vince, you're not, you're struggling or starving in this business. And I'm happy I had the run I had, and things happened and I got out. I had close to 5,000 bouts in almost 20 years, and I went to 32 different countries. So I guess I can be pretty happy with what I accomplished.
And say the opportunity to do, say, a Fan Slam convention or something like that came up, would you be interested in it?
Yeah, I sure would, actually. I would. I did a couple of conventions a year or so ago, and then I moved back up here to Michigan, and I didn't hear from too many people after that, and I kind of dried up. But I would like to get out. I like seeing the guys, I like talking to the guys and seeing what's going on, and I like seeing the guys from my area, because we were all kind of went through the same thing, and they're a lot of fun, actually, if you can get together for a day or two and hash all things over and go out to dinner or something. It's a lot of fun.
Do you have a website of any kind?
I don't believe so. A guy had put one together for me at one time, and I don't think he ever followed up on it. It was one of the guys that came to my school, a friend of his who was in a university studying that type of thing, journalism, and he had put one together, and I don't think there is one still active out there that I know of.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate your time to come on the show, given you're not an active wrestler anymore, and I'm sure all the fans, especially by the huge reaction we had with email questions and wishes of saying hi and whatnot to you when we announced that you'd be on the show, we really appreciate you coming on and taking so much time out of your schedule.
No, that's fine, guys. I appreciate it. You guys did a good job here, and I appreciate it. If you guys ever need anything else, give me a holler, and maybe we can do something else in the future.
Excellent. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more from the interactive interview.
This is Brett the Hitman Hart, and you're listening to the interactive interview.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter, on Twitter at James Epicenter, and of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hey, interview, George, Bo, hey, don't Bye-bye.
Welcome back to the interactive interview. I'm here with Daniel Edler and the man responsible for the Mike Shaw interview. Can't thank you enough for your questions. The incomparable Rick Clark. Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good, can you give us a brief update on your physical health?
Well, I start testing, which is just a basic blood test. We start testing again probably about the middle of March, and to find out if the surgery worked. And from all the indicators, the surgery should have done just fine.
Good.
All the numbers came up and crunched real well. All the seeds are still in place. The dosimetry reading was good. The coverage was excellent. I mean, there wasn't anything bad about it other than, having to have it done. They did say that the cancer was aggressive, but we did catch it early. And catching things early in this game is paramount. I mean, if you don't catch things early, you don't live very long. So hopefully I've got a few years left in me.
Well, that's great to hear.
You really, definitely, it's brilliant news that everything is going well as it can be. So obviously, our thoughts and whatnot are with you in the future, and obviously keep us informed and such.
Not a problem. That's why I've got that one thread on 3SW about it, because there's some embarrassing stuff in there, but it's worth it to share it because some of these guys may be faced with it in the future.
And some of them.
Good news I did post on there. They are in the third phase of a vaccine for prostate cancer, as well as about a half dozen other cancers out there. So if that comes about, hopefully guys your age won't be having to deal with this when they get to be my age.
Yes, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. Everybody has their theories that the government doesn't want there to be a cure, but I don't think that's the case.
Believe me, doctors right now want the cure. Yes, there's a lot of money in cancer, but they've got an awful lot of other things that they can focus their time and energies on. And I haven't met a specialist yet that wouldn't love to retire because it's been cured.
Right.
Well, speaking, of course, of the Mike Shaw interview that you obviously were instrumental in the questioning for, we really appreciate it. And Mike said he enjoyed the interview, and we spoke to him afterwards, and he was very forthright with our help that James needed and such, and really said he enjoyed the show, because we can really put that down to you. We really appreciate your help.
Hey, no problem, guys. That's what I'm here for. Anytime you need it, just holler.
And of course, all the information that Rick knows is, of course, published in the Encyclopedia of Pro Wrestling on pwbook.com. So how's things going with that? How's it looking for the next edition and whatnot?
Well, the next edition right now is still stuck in the mud, but the current one, that little article you published last week for me, that sold quite a few copies, actually.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. That's why I was willing to do more articles for you.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Really good news. I mean, I'm helping and spreading the word as much as I possibly can, so I'm hoping it helps.
By the way, I read that article. I was very enthralled by it. Very interesting.
Indeed. Just for people that don't know, of course, Rick wrote a very lengthy and in detail and very entertaining article about, of course, the death in pro wrestling, because, of course, last year there were a fair few of the frontrunners in the active, prominent field, but of course, the misconception was that last year had way more than any other years, and, of course, Rick, the first person to clear that one up comprehensively so that no one is in any doubt, and, of course, you can find that on a load of websites, including 3D Strand and, of course, in the 3SW forums.
Hey, Daniel, why didn't you put this up on the TII news board as well?
Okay, yeah, sure, sorted. I'll get that one. I'll get that up as soon as this Mike Shaw interview's gone up. Because, of course, if you're listening to this, you're going to then go and check the news board. So I'll put it up straight after this interview. Sure.
Sure. That sounds like a good plan.
So, of course, that's pwbook.com for more information about that. To hear what everyone's talking about. Rick, the author, and of course, Rick is the father figure, the god, the legend of 3SW forums as well. So, been on the show before. Of course, what other recaps have you been on? Because
Bruno Sammartino and Johnny Valiant.
Okay, so
you were on the Johnny Valiant one?
Yeah, that's the one that you did by yourself.
Actually, Dan was on there, but Dan was less than enthralled by it, like he was with this one and the one that we just recorded that I won't mention until it actually goes up.
Yeah, Johnny Valiant, I didn't like the interview itself. I'd say nothing about the show, 'cause the show was alright, but I didn't find Johnny to be the most forthright guest.
Entertaining and forthright. Now, actually, Johnny disappointed me because I've seen his stand-up act, and I actually enjoy the guy. I loved him when he was a wrestler. He was a fantastic personality when he was a wrestler. He and Jimmy put on a great show, and then when Jimmy got hurt and they brought in Bobby Heenan's brother, he wrestled as Guy Mitchell and also Jerry Valiant. They did a good job. They really did. But his interview was, I think he kayfabed it just a little too much for what you guys are used to.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it was, but I think it was a bad idea that if you're promoting something that you want people to pay to go see, to hear things like what he was going to talk about, he really did not give us the kind of thing that would make me say, well, I got to go see this guy live. This is going to be hysterical.
I mean, obviously, because he's doing his show, he doesn't want to give everything away in an interview. That would kind of kill the appeal to go and see him. But by the same time, he really didn't feed any teasers to make people want to go. Like James said, to make people want to sit there and think, this guy's good. I want to pay to see him, for longer. So it's a shame, but I'm sure I've heard his show is absolutely excellent. I really have. I've read some of the reviews, and of course, Evan Ginsberg was sitting through some of the reviews and such at the press that we gave him. But I heard it's a really good show, and he's doing more and such. But it's just a shame that obviously that interview wasn't as good. But of course, Bruno Sammartino was of course an excellent interview, and of course
if you got past the beeping, was there beeping on that one?
I think it was just Ted DiBiase definitely had beeping. I'm not sure.
No, not
actually. Bruno had the beeping.
It might have, yeah.
I don't remember the beeping. I just remember the interviews.
It was
the only reason I remember the beeping on Ted DiBiase was because for me it ended up being beep, beep, beep. Oh, is that my phone? Let me quickly try and change phones. Oh dear, I've lost myself from the interview.
Yes, he basically hung himself up, and I had to do it alone for the rest.
But, all these interviews that we're talking about are available in the archive section.
And one thing you got to say, you keep saying they're available in the archive section. For those listening, it's free. You don't have to pay for the archives. Just go, you click, and you're there.
Exactly. Whereas other sites such as Audio Wrestling, they make you pay to go and listen to all the old shows, the past shows and whatnot. We don't, and we're not planning on, and we're not going to at any point in the future, because there's no need. We don't feel we need to. These are free interviews. The wrestlers come on the show. Apart from the fact that we're promoting, obviously, their product and whatnot, they don't make directly any money. We don't pay them to come on the show. They take time out their own schedules, which is why we thank them. And people like Rick that come on the archives, the recaps, sorry. I mean, they take their time out of their own schedule, completely unpaid, just for the love of wrestling, to come on the show and talk about it. So that's why we thank them so much.
Plus, it's a ball to do this.
We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Actually, a couple of guys, I think, have actually enjoyed doing this. A couple of the actual interviewers. And I think one of them is going to be our anniversary show, which will be back as soon as Daniel returns from his vacation.
It's kind of less of a vacation, more of a kind of a celebration that I've finished my exam period, my first exam period. So.
And how did it go today, Daniel?
Today would be my 4th exam out of 5 at uni. Of course, I've got the result back for 1, which I failed, which ain't too good. But I've got the one today, which is on advanced mathematics and theoretic equations or something like that. And it's kind of all logarithms and stuff like that.
It's basically algebra.
Yeah, that was the second half. And the first half was kind of like all this stuff like binary and hexadecimal and octal and stuff. But it's just stuff that really relates into the computing subject that I'm doing. So that was the 4th out of 5, and hopefully, touch wood, gone quite well. But yeah, I'm going away. I'm spending one night in London partying, one night in Soho partying. Soho's the sex capital of England, by the way, just to let you know.
All right.
Spending one night with my family, and I'm spending one night with someone on their birthday. But in between times, I'm not going to be anywhere near a phone, anywhere near a computer, or anything like that. So, I'll call it a vacation.
Well, if you're partying all those nights, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and in between, I'll of course be recovering. But that's why we're getting this Mike Shaw interview up, because this has got longevity to it. Because I mean, Mike, he's not been active recently, in the public eye. And he's not someone who's done a load of interviews. We're the first people to have him in 2004, for definite. I was checking around, because I thought, what guests do we have on the show that no other shows in our competition bracket have had? And, you got Mike Shaw, you got, Bruno Sammartino, as we said, you got, Rob Van Dam, you got definitely Jake Roberts, and, you got, like Francine and stuff like that. But I'd say the biggest one at the moment, the most unique interview that we've had that no one else has had, and no one else looks like they're going to have, is Mike Shaw. So.
Yeah, and like I said to Evan Ginsberg in one of our recaps, I think it's on the Don Callis interview, I said to him pretty much the fact that, I'm not doing this because I want to have the flavor of the month on all the time. I want to interview the guys that made me love the business, and I remember watching Norman the Lunatic, and that was just a hysterical character. I really loved that. And getting to hear the man, I mean, you could hear me in the interview, and Rick has been privy to hear the actual audio of it prior to doing this. You could hear me go, when he says, I donated all the bears to charity, you could hear me actually go, ah.
He comes off such a nice man. He, obviously, we've spoken to him beforehand, and we've spoken to him when we were arranging the interview. And, you asked for a couple of bits of help afterwards and such to help the project you're doing. And he was just so forthright and helpful, whereas other people, past guests, haven't been so helpful after they've been on the show, whereas, Mike definitely was. So.
Yeah. And what did you think of the interview, Rick?
Well, I really liked it because Mike, to me, has always been this big, giant teddy bear. Even when he was Makhan Singh, which was one of the most hated heels in the history of Canadian wrestling, he still had a teddy bear quality to him. He had a teddy bear quality to him when he was the Mighty Wilbur, when he was Bastion Booger, even to some degree. I loved him when he was Friar Ferguson, even though it was a 2-month run. Aaron Grundy was another one that was fantastic for him. And you mentioned Norman the Lunatic and Trucker Norm and all the little Norman characters. And he's just this big, larger-than-life, lovable teddy bear guy, and he's a real nice family man. I mean, he's married to a woman named Kelly, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady, and he's got a son named Joshua, and he's a heck of a family man. He's trained some wrestlers in the past. He's got a very colorful and interesting history. He's been a professional boxer. He's a professional softball player, which I didn't even know they had professional softball. High school wrestling.
Just ask Sid, they have it.
Huh?
Just ask Sid, they have it.
Yeah, well, he gave up wrestling for it for a while.
Right.
No, he's been a high school wrestling coach. I mean, this guy, he gives back as much as he takes, if not more. And as far as a human being goes, he's a wonderful man. And there's some things about Mike that a lot of people don't realize. This guy was one heck of an amateur wrestler. I mean, he was an AAU regional champion. He was the Great Lakes Conference champion in the unlimited weight class as an amateur. I mean, this guy's got a good wrestling background. He's not one of these guys that goes out there and learns some acrobatic moves and says, well, gee, I can make money at this. He actually loved wrestling, and he made a business out of it.
Well, I can certainly, just listening to you speak about Mike, I can certainly draw some of those, if not a lot of those qualities back to yourself, Rick. In all seriousness.
Well, yeah, I'm a large teddy bear kind of guy. Scarier than Mike, but what can I say?
Yeah,
but
all of those qualities apply to you as well. So, but yeah, we really appreciate your questions for that. And
with your comments about Mike, have you ever actually met the man?
Met him? No, I've seen him wrestle. I didn't get a chance to meet him. He was in Spokane several years ago, and I think I was up in the nosebleed section, so I didn't get a chance to meet him then. There's a lot of these guys I have met over the years. Mike's not one of them. I've seen a lot of Mike's stuff because he's one of these guys that, well, a lot of people in this country don't know a lot about him other than, God, yeah, he was Bastion Booger, and how disgusting was that? And, yeah, he did that Norman thing for a while that was kind of strange. But he had a wonderful career, And he's one of these guys that make wrestling go and make it happen, and he's not a big-name star. Not to diminish what he did. I mean, he's not Hulk Hogan. He's not Bruno Sammartino.
He was for lack of for what the wrestling vernacular would call a good hand.
Yeah, a great hand. I mean, he went out there and did stuff that, a lot of people would feel it was a career killer to do Norman the Lunatic, let alone Bastion Booger. But I mean, he did Aaron Grundy, and he did what he was asked to do. And when he went up to Canada, they put him with Gama Singh, and they brought him in as Makhan Singh, and then they teamed him up with Vulcan Singh, and a lot of people would know Vulcan Singh better as Gary Albright, who passed away a few years ago.
By the way, Gary Albright also has a official website that I'll have to link you up to if you've not checked that out yet, Rick.
I haven't. The thing about Gary, a lot of people don't realize, he was Offa's son-in-law, and he was wrestling for Offa's promotion at the time that he passed away, and Offa's son, Samu, was the one that climbed in the ring and tried to save his life. And
could you shed some light on exactly what killed him?
Yeah, I can. Basically, he had brittle diabetes. He was very sick with diabetes, and it affected his heart, and he had a heart attack. But basically, he was physically a mess when he passed away. And he wasn't very old. I think he was I can tell you exactly. I think he was 34, 38, somewhere around there.
Rick's looking in his PW book.
Yeah, well, I don't know all this stuff off the top of my head.
Right.
Gary was 36 years old when he died, and he was in a match against Lucifer Grimm at the time, and his opponent realized that there was something wrong, and actually Gary won the match after he died.
How is that possible?
Well, when he came off the ropes, he had a massive heart attack when he came off the ropes, and Lucifer saw his eyes roll back in his head and knew there was something wrong, and then took him and rolled him up, so he pinned Lucifer. I mean, it spoke volumes for the talent that his opponent had to make it look real. And then, after the match was over, everybody came rushing in, and Sam tried to bring him back, and it was just too late. I mean, his heart just basically blew up. I don't know.
Whatever happened to Lucifer?
Huh?
Whatever happened to Lucifer?
Last I heard, he was still playing in the Indies. He was still wrestling for Alpha and Sika, the last I heard.
Mm-hmm.
They wrestle in the Pennsylvania area.
Just to kind of going on the Samoan family. But I heard today that, of course, Jamal, former one-half 3-minute warning, signed a long-term contract in Japan, where apparently he's going to be teaming with D'Lo against Muta and Bob Sapp in regards to a future Sapp versus ECMO feud.
Well, that'd be nice. I think this superhero in training thing is kind of winding down, and Vince doesn't tend to keep guys that are that big very long because, quite frankly, he's worried about their heart. And Yokozuna, who was trying to lose weight, was just basically told, hey, lose a bunch of weight and you can come back. You're a good hard worker, but man, you're going to die. And he didn't want him to die in the ring on him. And Yokozuna's another one of the clan there. There's so many of them that are all related and intertwined in there. I mean, you've got Rikishi and...
Who is, shit, what the hell's his name? Tonga Kid?
Tonga Kid?
Yeah.
Sam Fatu, Sam Fatu. Or Sam Inouye? Sam Inouye.
Okay.
Samula Inouye. He's Alpha's son.
Alpha's son, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw him wrestle a couple months ago, and I knew who he was, but I couldn't
fathom who exactly he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen him in years.
Yeah, and then he got very heavy for a while. I don't know what he looks like now. He gained a lot of weight when he became the Samoan Savage. He was he's like a lot of the Samoans. They're very athletic when they're young, and then they gain a lot of weight as they age. And he was one of those. He was Tonga Kid. He was fairly thin, and then when he became the Samoan Savage, he put on probably 100 pounds.
He still looked a little hefty.
Gained a lot of weight, huh?
He was still hefty, and he was doing the Marquisha gimmick. He did the stink face in the corner.
Ah.
So yeah, he was doing the whole Rikishi dancing thing too. So
that does not surprise me. They're very talented, and they're cousins.
Right.
Rikishi actually grew up in Hunters Point down by Candlestick Park in San Francisco.
Huh.
As a kid, and
Candlestick Park they pretty much just destroyed, didn't they?
Yeah, they now have they have one over by the bridge right now, over by the Bay Bridge. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Candlestick stunk, by the way.
Well, yeah.
Oh, the actual arena, when you go into that ballpark, it's like getting hit in the face by a gym sock.
It's pretty close. I actually enjoyed it, but I grew up in San Francisco and Sacramento, so the park never bothered me. In fact, I went to the old Seal Stadium as a kid before they even built Candlestick. That's telling you how old I am.
I just want to, I mean, just thinking about, I mean, if this, Jamal versus Bob Sapp thing does go through, obviously, since Sapp's one of the biggest things in Japan at the moment, I mean, if that goes through, then, Jamal, aka, Ekmo Fighters, he's going to make a hell of a lot of money, and you just got to feel, I mean, sorry for, for Rosie, for, Chemo. He's in WWE doing this SHIT thing, making a complete fool of himself, and his brother who got released, he's making a hell of a lot more money in Japan as a legit, fighter.
Well, a lot of the wrestlers, once they leave the WWE, they'll go to Japan to make money. Dustin Runnels, Gold Dust, is going over there, and he's changing his name to Platinum.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to go with Lone Star.
He's done both, apparently.
Who knows? I mean, look at Brutus Beefcake. He went over there and wrestled as Brute Force for a couple of years, too. A guy can go over to Japan, and if he's mid-card, he can make $1,000 a day, and if he's higher up, he makes accordingly. There is good money in Japan, and they love American wrestlers over there.
Oh, Hulk Hogan's one of the hugest things. When he went back there, he sold out that big arena, and he made a lot of money.
That's right.
I mean, that was just recently, too. I mean, that was only about, 3-4 months ago?
And, of course, Goldberg as well.
Goldberg, yes.
It's an unusual culture from this aspect. Women wrestlers, I don't know whether they're no longer allowed to, but at one time they could not wrestle past the age of 27, I believe, in Japan. They had to retire. So, I mean, you had all these tiny little ladies that were between, say, 16 and 27, and that was their whole career. I mean, 27, you're done. Go make babies. You're no longer a wrestler. And I think a couple of them came to this country. I think Bull Nakano came here, and she was past the age by the time she got here. And,
right. Well, she looked about, 35, 40?
Well, she wasn't as old as she looked. A lot of that was the makeup, and she's just a big woman. But then you take the men, and the men over there, Stan Hansen, Steve Williams, Johnny Ace wrestled into his 40s over there. Many of the guys that wrestle over there are in their 40s and 50s, and it's not uncommon to even see one in their 60s in the ring over there, if they're, decent talent. And they do have a little higher degree of what they expect from their talent over there. Some of their promotions I don't care for.
You don't like the garbage wrestling style?
No, I never have. I don't like rings blowing up and things on fire and tacks and, You know, a barbed wire match once every 3 or 4 years, fine, but I don't want to see a ring explode and that sort of thing. I mean, people get hurt doing that stuff.
And it really serves no purpose, because at the end of the night, it's the same result. Who won the match? That's what people want to know.
Yeah. Well, either who won the match or how much damage did it do to the arena.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, if somebody would put on a show and blow up the damn arena, but you're gonna have a pretty good lawsuit on your hands there.
This is true. Oh, one thing that did come up today, Terry Funk for the 912th time is going to announce his retirement, this time with MLW down with Harley Race's group. He's going on. It got to be a standing joke in Japan. I mean, this guy retired a dozen times and did a retirement tour in Japan. They finally got to laugh at him because, yeah, right, Terry, sure you're retiring.
WLW? Is that Harley Race's group?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it'll be on, Terry Funk will be on TNA Wednesday night, actually. He's teaming up with the Sandman to take on CM Punk and Julio De Niro.
That would be a good match.
Yeah, because they're mixing the old talent with the new talent, basically.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to bring up to you guys is another reason why I really enjoyed listening to guys like Mike Shaw and Bruno and some of these other guys. These are guys that had an entire career, okay? They haven't been in this thing for a cup of coffee and now they're a wrestler. I mean, these guys were around for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. They have a career. They've got something to talk about instead of saying, well, where's your career going? You know, you started this year, and how's it going? And, you know, you had this great match and that great match, but they haven't had a career yet.
Right.
It was like when Kurt Angle did his book and Bill Goldberg did their book. I'm sitting there going, these guys have been in the business 2 years. What career? You know?
Well, this is what I said when The Rock released his first book, which by the way went gold. First of all, if he actually wrote that book, I'll eat the book personally.
Oh hell no, you didn't write it.
Right. I will put a little salt on it and I will shove that thing down my throat. But there's no way that he wrote that book personally. But that when I read that, I was like, what the hell is he gonna write? He's been in the business for what, 4 years? What is this guy gonna write about his time in the wrestling business? Is he gonna write it on the back of a cocktail napkin? What's going on here?
Well, and at that time, he was just starting to get popular because the first 6 months of his career, he was down wrestling for
USWA.
Lawler, making $1.50 a match. You know, he wasn't. You know, he was ready to quit the business and everything else until he went up to the WWF, and then he came in and he wasn't real well received at first, and then he had a few coined phrases that made him popular, and the guy looks great. I mean, you know, God, I wish I had a body that looked like that. But, you know, and he's not a bad worker. He's a good worker. He really is.
He is.
And he gets an awful lot of flack for doing movies, but I got news for you. If you look at the credits, the executive producer of every movie he's been in is Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
And by the way, 30% of what The Rock makes in those movies goes straight to Vince.
You got it. Plus, whatever Vince makes goes straight to Vince.
Right.
You know, he's got, you know, if Rock makes $5 million a movie, and that's been a figure that was thrown out for the Scorpion King. Okay, he made $5 million. Okay, $1.5 million of that went to Vince.
Right.
Not a bad deal for just saying you can use your name. You know.
Exactly. So we'll see definitely more people in the future, and of course, you know, Kevin Nash apparently got stabbed on the site of his Punisher film, apparently by his co-host accidentally. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
I did.
I heard it over there, and when I saw the title, the title I read was on a message forum, like a UK one that I frequent now and again, and it just said Kevin Nash stabbed on scene of film. I just read it and thought, what? But of course, you read the story, and you know it was an accident by his co-host apparently, but he's not injured at all. But definitely a shocking title to read. So.
Well, you play with sharp objects, you get cut. I used to own a knife store. I've got a scar on my wrist. It looked like I tried to slash my wrist. I got stabbed in the stomach, and that's a real long story. I mean, I even got stabbed in the forehead. Huh? Or slashed in the forehead. I mean, you play around with sharp objects, you get cut. You know, so that when they say they get stabbed or cut on a movie, it doesn't surprise me.
One thing, that was just kind of a link that I saw there, but I also want to just mention that, of course, I've read the Rock's first book. Well, actually, I tell a lie. I've read about half of it, then I got bored and haven't read the other half yet. I've also read Bill Goldberg's book, and I haven't read Kurt Angle's book, but I imagine if you compare the three, fair enough, Kurt Angle, you know, he's had his Olympic training and whatnot, but Bill Goldberg really, I mean, fair enough, he probably should have waited till the absolute end of his career, because then he could talk about all his WWE stuff. But, I mean, his book, if you're, I didn't get the American football side of things, because I'm British, and we're not cultured into that, so I didn't get that bit, and didn't find it very interesting. But for an American person who, you know, would get that and that sort of thing, I think it's really not a bad book in the long run, because it is relatively quite interesting.
Right.
Well, yeah, but like you said, it'd be like James and I reading a book about Dave Beckham. I mean, we don't get soccer, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a little bit when I was in grade school and played a little bit in high school, but...
And every once in a while, they always try to come up with a new soccer league that's going to take over and make soccer popular in the United States, but it just
doesn't work here.
It doesn't work here.
It's a cultural thing, and it's a wonderful game. I enjoyed playing it, but, I mean, we just don't get it here. I mean, you put a bunch of pads on a bunch of big, ugly guys, and you tell them to go out there and play football, and, hey, every redneck in the country's out there with his six-pack of Budweiser watching the game.
Right.
You know, and no, I did not watch the Super Bowl, if anyone's asking.
It was a good game.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
It was a good game. What pisses me off about it, and I don't even really want to talk about it since it's just so stupid, is that the halftime show is getting more respect than the game did. And the game was actually the best Super Bowl I've seen in about 10 years.
Actually, the game was the best Super Bowl probably they ever had, and the halftime show sucked.
Thank you.
The halftime show, actually, I did catch the halftime show. And it was only because I was in the middle of something and I needed to take a break. And I came down and turned it on, and I'm going, what are these guys thinking? I mean, granted, this is not my kind of music. And I'd be the first to say, okay, I do not like this kind of music.
Right.
Kid Rock, I didn't think that was all that great. He's a heck of an entertainer. I couldn't understand a word he sung. Janet Jackson, she moves great and everything, and I know what the deal was with the ripping of her clothes.
She's a washed-up pop star trying to get another run, basically. Yeah. And that's basically all that was. And I personally, you know...
Vader.
Who are we talking about again?
Nikita Koloff.
Okay.
And he just never came back from that. And I'm sitting there going, wow, you know, why?
Did he die?
No, he didn't die. In fact, actually, he's wrestled as recently as a couple of months ago for Ted DiBiase, born-again Christians that are trying to help Ted out with his Christian promotion.
Right.
But this guy was just flat awesome in the ring. He could interview, and he could do it in this fake Russian accent, and you'd swear to God he was from
Moscow.
Let's see, they had him coming from Lithuania, I think. It started off he was from Moscow, then they moved him to Lithuania when they wanted to make him a good guy, you know. But, you know, he's from Minnesota, you know. He grew up probably right around the same time period as Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude and the Road Warriors. They all kind of trained about the same time.
You know what's scary about that, though? Just as you said those names, I'm thinking to myself, you know, 3 of the 4 are gone.
Yeah.
That's scary as hell.
Yeah. But it's also that time period, too. They were all, you know, about the same age. And Rick Rude, in fact, I put a deal on one of the threads on 3-Strand about it, and I'm going to give away the answer. Rick Rude had just beaten testicular cancer when he passed away from a heart attack. His death was kind of like, what? Kurt Hennig, okay, acute cocaine intoxication, that I can understand a person dying from. Hawk has been sick for years, okay? He's had hepatitis C, I think. I mean, this guy really had some health problems in recent years. So Hawk wasn't a big surprise to me. Kurt Hennig wasn't that big of a surprise. Rick Rude was the surprise.
Right. And I remember when I read that the first time, I mean, that was not long or long before or long after Owen Hart.
No, it wasn't.
When that happened and Owen happened, I still remember what happened when I heard about Owen. I mean, I was watching the pay-per-view and they had said it. I remember getting up and left the room, and I sat in the corner of my room and put my head in my hands. I'm like, what's going on? This is not right. That's not how it's supposed to be.
No.
In a roundabout, strange way, the death of Rick Rude was what really made me concentrate on improving the general the news stream in the websites on the internet, because I mean I'm pretty influential in the whole administrating kind of editing side of that sort of thing now, and I read back in 2001, I'd say, and I read in a news post by a kid who, you know, he's obviously in it for the money, had no knowledge of wrestling at all, and he was doing his news post, whatever, and right at the bottom he was doing happy birthdays, and he said happy birthday so and he credited and said happy birthday to Rick Rude, and that's just that's one of the moments of like the whole, you know, editing kind of side of things that I've done since I joined the internet. That's one of the moments that sticks out in me, kind of sitting thinking, right, people like him just shouldn't be around, shouldn't be, like, you know, spreading word about wrestling, because they obviously have no clue, and he just said happy birthday to a guy who died.
Right.
It's like...
And like before we got on the show, you know, the news is not as good as it should be in terms of the important stuff. I had asked Rick before we went on the air about Chris Adams, Gentleman Chris Adams, because I had heard that he died, and I don't remember hearing about it. I don't remember hearing when he died, and I think it was about 2001 when somebody said he died, and that's what Rick actually ended up telling me. Now, he was killed, he was murdered, and the coverage in this country is such shit. I mean, you get nothing if you're a wrestler. You don't get press anywhere in this state of Arizona, and it wasn't that much better in New York. I remember when Owen Hart died, that was top page news. That was because it was happening in the ring. And plus, wrestling was on a high. But when Elizabeth died, I mean, the only time that I ever heard it on the news, I had obviously heard it on the internet, but on the news, the only time I'd ever heard it was when Entertainment Tonight did a special on her.
Well, CNN and MSNBC did a deal on it the day that she died, but and they said, you know, popular wrestling personality, Miss Elizabeth, and they gave her real name, and said that she passed away, and that was pretty much about it. And there was a little bit about Lex Luger in there too, but not much. Like basically he was arm candy, showing her in the ring with him or something like that.
And they also had when Kurt Hennig died about a year ago, they had nothing on him either.
No, and that one was sad. Basically, the mainstream media, okay.
Sees wrestling as the bastard child of entertainment.
Right. I mean, the sporting columns dropped them years ago, even before kayfabe was killed by Vince McMahon. I still credit Vince, even though that Vince was not the first to come out and say, okay, wrestling is not real sport, it's entertainment. I've always had a problem with the fact that they say it's not a sport, because
it takes a lot of athleticism, and even though it might be predetermined, these guys still get hurt.
Very much so, and they get hurt a lot more than football players, and baseball players, and basketball players. I mean, these guys, their careers can be ended in one night. There's guys wrestling right now that, you know, I'm sitting there shaking my head going, please do not do this. Kurt Angle's one of them. Chris Benoit's another. I was very, very pleased when Austin decided to retire from the ring. I was pleased when Mick Foley decided to get out of it. I mean, these guys are busted up, They have no business in the ring. They're risking their lives.
I love Benoit, but I feel bad that he's as bad off as he is. And he doesn't look it physically, but you know, based on everything that he's done to his body, that he's a train wreck if you took an X-ray of him.
Well, it isn't just that. Okay, to give you an idea, having a disc laminectomy, okay, and mine was not as successful as a lot of them are, but I was also, mine went too long before it was done. It should have been done 6 months before. They did the normal protocol with me, and it just cost me some problems. But the fact is these guys take a year off, and they get back in the ring, and they're not 100%. Even if they have a very successful laminectomy in the cervical spine, you've got at least 2 discs, and with Benoit, it's 3 discs that are fused together. He's got a limited mobility in his neck. He's going to be in pain. Now, Benoit claims he doesn't take painkillers, and he didn't even take them in the hospital. God bless him if he didn't. I don't know how he does it. But, you know, these guys are, you know, they're a train wreck waiting to happen. And Benoit's one, Austin was one. Like I said, I was real happy to see him retire.
Well, once you come out there and you've got 2 new knee braces on, and you're obviously in pain in your neck, you know, you'd be better off retiring than getting yourself even more banged up, because you already look like hell.
Yeah. And Austin needs those knee braces just to basically get to the ring. You know, he's still wearing them, and he's not even an active wrestler.
I don't know about.
I read an interview that a couple of my friends did, the Lils Boys, in the Sun Times. When I promoted that, I read their interview, and basically he says that he wants to do a couple more shots, but it won't be WrestleMania.
I don't believe that.
He might get into the ring, but he's going to have to get in the ring with somebody he can really trust. I mean, SHawn Michaels, the reason why most of his matches are with Helmsley is because of the fact that he can trust him. And they both did some real good stuff in the last one, because both of them are really busted up good. But they protect each other, and they work well together. But there's an awful lot of guys out there right now that are a walking time bomb. And it's sad, but, you know, it's an awful lot of money to walk away from, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to say 2 things before we hang up, okay? First thing was, before we got in the air, I said I had something about Bret Hart that can interest me. And I don't know if Cowboy ever responded, but if you go to the store right now, and go to the toy aisle for any particular reason, check out, and they have a series of action figures out called The Legends of Wrestling. And, of course, you have the guys that are in the business today that you can pass off as legends, such as The Undertaker, the old look, not the new look. The new look is shit. I don't like it. But, you have him, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, I mean, guys that could pass. Then you have Andre, which I can understand because they kind of have that right. But then they had 2 others that really surprised me to see. That's Bret the Hitman Hart and the Ultimate Warrior. Now, I'm under the impression, based on projects that I'm working on, that Vince has to get your permission to release your image in that sense. Not in terms of video or whatever, but in that sense, he has to have your permission to do so.
It may have been in the fine print someplace, who knows? Because Cowboy did answer my question on that in the forum, and basically it was some guys had deals, and almost anybody in the last 10 years has some sort of a deal, and the ones prior to that, he didn't know.
Yes, you mentioned that to me, and of course I thought it was interesting, but of course don't know the full details. So.
Well, I'm just thinking to myself that if they show up at WrestleMania, you know that they signed something with them to give them that permission.
Oh, sure.
It would be definitely be interesting to, you know, if someone who is obviously in the absolute know, if they could clear it up either way, it would certainly be interesting to know.
And the last thing I wanted to say before we hang up, because I think we're getting low on both tape and plus we've gone on rather long, is Rick,
Yes.
You've spoken rather openly, I guess would be the proper word, about Missy Hyatt interview.
Yep.
Okay. How about giving your opinion on this show?
Well, since I actually got to listen to Mike, I loved it because...
Missy Hyatt, this is?
Huh?
Missy Hyatt you're talking about?
No. Mike Shaw.
Yeah, okay. No, I said Missy Hyatt.
Missy Hyatt?
Yeah.
Missy Hyatt was a little too open. There was just... she was crass. I don't know how else to put it. She could have taken a lesson from Medusa on class. I mean, you did the Medusa interview afterwards.
Right.
And Deborah Ann Michelli showed a lot of class.
Right.
And I don't even think the two should have been mentioned in the same sentence, but they were both married to Eddie Gilbert, and one has a lot of class and one evidently doesn't. I'm probably going to hear about that one from somebody, I'm sure, but I thought that she could have been less graphic and cleaned up her language, and you know.
At the same rate, I literally can't wait until, and I don't think they still have yet, I can't wait till they open MissyHyatt.tv. I still think she's attractive. I know you don't, but...
Well, I've never thought Missy was attractive, but she's got a nice body. At least at one time she did. I don't know what it looks like now.
A little bit more plastic, but otherwise good.
You know, makes her happy. No, I thought you were talking about the Mike Shaw interview. I absolutely loved it. I did listen to all of Missy, and I got what I was expecting to get. Unfortunately, I wasn't pleasantly surprised. You know, she was... I mean, as far as being open about her personal relationships with half the guys in the ring, you know, she could have cleaned it up.
Right.
I mean, here's a woman that at one time was considered one of the most beautiful women in wrestling. And she didn't have to sacrifice being a lady over it. And she did.
Right.
So you asked, I answered, and that's the best I could do, guys.
Well, Rick, I still want you to check out TNA. I know we still don't see eye to eye on that product, but I think you would get a kick out of it based on what we've talked about online. I had mentioned that several times in our last recap that we had done together, that you should check it out because I think it'd be more your style than the current WWE product.
Absolutely right.
I think what you're seeing now from TNA is very impressive. Once again, Wednesday night, they have Terry Funk coming in. I don't like the fact that they have the Insane Clown Posse there simply because what do they offer? Pretty much nothing. The only thing that they are is, you know, they're popular, but that's about it. They can't work. They can't, you know.
The only one of those guys that could have ever worked was Vampiro. And he was more or less just associated with him, so.
Right.
And I think that has more to do with the music than it does with the wrestling.
Right. And their music, I don't know why, but it just really annoys me. So they're the biggest. I've called it the second I saw it. I called it on the last recap. I'll call it again. The last recap was incredibly loud, by the way, because of dying battery in our recording equipment. But the biggest Kiss ripoffs on the planet is the Insane Clown Posse. That's all I have to say.
I like a couple of their songs. They can produce songs that I like, but as a whole, you know, it's not my type.
Yeah. I don't know what they are. I don't even know what style you'd call them. I mean, Mike Awesome called them a rock band, but they're not really rock.
They're just loud. It's noise.
Probably rap, yeah. Probably rap or hip hop or whatever.
Right.
He'll class himself someone else.
I think Rick has it right. It's pretty much just loud.
It's just noise.
Right. Of course, they got Johnny Fairplayer or Johnny Fairweather in this.
Yeah, he was there last week, and he was there this week again, and.
Well, that's just capitalizing on his unpopularity as a character in, what was it, Survivor or one of those other reality shows.
Right. And I I mean, the guy can bump okay, but he's not, somebody that I would keep around and assign to a contract like they seem to have done.
Well, as soon as they figure out the fact that they got more press off this Brian Urlacher, or however you pronounce his name, they got more press off him, and that was a one-shot deal that probably didn't cost them a hell of a lot, than they have done off Johnny Fairweather, Johnny whatever.
Fair play.
Fair play.
Yeah, that. They got more press off that than of this Urlacher than they have off this Fair play.
Well, the thing is, sports like sports, If you can get LT to do a WrestleMania like they did, that was big. Especially at the time. If you can get an athlete to do something like Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman, that was big at the time. I mean, that was big. But when you get like a superstar like that, I mean, they're not really going to be big. Look at, what the hell, David Arquette. He's not an athlete. What the hell is he doing there?
And let alone let him win a title.
Right, that was stupid.
Win one of the most respected titles in the history of wrestling. That's why I didn't like and still do not like Vince Russo. I mean, that was beyond a slap in the face to the sport itself and the people that have held the belt. Diamond Dallas Page says, hey, you always wanted to be a wrestler and it was just for fun and run. Well, yeah, but you don't spit on you. You don't spit on this.
Well, what I find hysterical is that David Arquette was equipped to get the belt, and 2 months later when Hogan wanted to get the belt, they said, no, we can't give him the belt. He's too old. Hogan's a wrestler at least.
How comes the WWE booking committee was English? Because you just did an English impression when you said that. Oh wait, how come we can't give him the belt? He's too old. Oh.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Absolutely.
Well, we're all done here with the interactive interview. Stay tuned for our anniversary edition coming up next week. We have a special treat for you. I will not let the cat out of the bag just yet, but trust me, when you hear the quality of our following interview, which will be up in 1 week from today, you will be blown away. That's a promise from the interactive interview.